Want to learn about a fun and easy way to improve your metabolic and mental health? I don't really like the term life hack, but if I weren't opposed to that name, this would be one. You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 179. This Italian indulgence will improve your future. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello and welcome to the episode. I'm so glad that you're here. You are awesome. How is your endothelium and your glycocalyx? Have you been thinking about keeping them smooth and how that freshly zambonied endothelium kind of snowballs into a cascade of health? Today we're going to talk about something easy and enjoyable you can do for 5 to 30 minutes a day to increase your chances of living healthier for longer. For real. So I hope I can convince you to give it a try. The Italians have a tradition called la passeggiata. How's my pronunciation? I know it's bad. I've never been to Italy, but I have seen it on TV. La passeggiata comes from the verb passeggiare, which means to walk. La passeggiata is an after-dinner walk. Apparently, it's a little more common in southern Italy, but you'll basically see lots of people walking around the town after dinner on most evenings, especially Sunday. They do it all year round, and sometimes they'll even dress up to show off their new shoes or a new suit on their passeggiata. It's a tradition that fosters social bonding. You finish your meal, and then you go wander around outside and bump into your neighbors and talk. Walking is great to get our non-exercise movement in, but it's also a stress and anxiety reliever and lessens the symptoms of depression. Norwegians have a tradition called Søndagstur, which means Sunday trip. They traditionally go as a family for a 1 or 2 hour walk every Sunday, anywhere. There are tons of great people throughout history who used walking to spur their creativity and help them think through problems. There's a Latin phrase, solvitur ambulando, which means it is solved by walking. Nietzsche said, all truly great thoughts are conceived by walking. Kierkegaard said, I have walked myself into my best thoughts. Immanuel Kant said, his neighbors could set their clocks to the time he passed their houses on his daily walk. Charles Darwin said he followed his daily schedule with clockwork precision for 40 years, part of which was a complete loop walking what he called his thinking path. Aristotle and his followers became known as the peripatetics, which means walking up and down. So next time you have a problem or a question you need to mull over, or maybe a family discussion or quandary, tell your loved ones, solvitur ambulando, and invite them to join you on your daily passeggiata, or go by yourself and start walking yourself into your best thoughts. Walking does feel meditative, right? Especially if you don't have anything electronic with you. You're input-free and just noticing sights and smells and sounds and nature. Walking after a meal in particular has even more benefits. A 2008 study concluded that walking after a meal accelerates gastric emptying of the meal, reducing GI discomfort like indigestion. So even if all your neighbors aren't walking around creating opportunities for social connection, your walk can still improve your digestion, reduce your stress, and solve all of your life's problems. But wait, that's not all. Call in the next 5 minutes. What I think is the biggest reason to take 5 to 15 minutes out of your day, starting today, to go for a little walk after dinner, even if it's raining or windy, is that its effect on your metabolic health is not subtle. I know how much money people or their insurance company, which really just means the cost gets passed on to the rest of us, spend on drugs that offer a modest improvement in blood sugar control. It's a lot. But what if you could get all of those benefits without the side effects and prevent that type of metabolic crisis in the first place? But wait, that's not all. You get 11 benefits in one. You know that having consistently high blood sugar levels damages your body and impairs your cells over time. You may not know that having high insulin levels, regardless of blood sugar levels, is also bad. High blood sugar and or high insulin can damage your blood vessels, your heart, brain, kidneys, liver, eyes, feet, nerves, immune system, pretty much everything that you need to thrive in good health. So strategies that help us maintain healthy levels of insulin and blood sugar help us to put more years lived in good health into our futures. There are multiple strategies for maintaining your sensitivity to insulin and proper blood glucose levels, like not drinking sugary beverages, not eating sugary and simple carb foods. But did you know that there are tons of studies showing that taking a lovely stroll after a meal improves your blood sugar response to that meal? A 2016 study showed that a 10-minute walk after a meal helped control blood sugar levels in 41 adults with type 2 diabetes. A 2013 study showed that walking for 15 minutes after every meal of the day improved blood sugar levels of older adults for 24 hours. There's a company that I like called Levels that analyzes blood glucose data from thousands of people who wear continuous glucose monitors all day, every day. Their data shows that adults see a 30% lower glucose spike after high-carb meals if they go for a walk afterward. 30%. That's a big deal. I've been wearing a continuous glucose monitor for the past 7 days or so I don't have quite enough data to share with you regarding this yet, but for sure when I move around after I eat, my blood sugar doesn't go up as high as it does if I'm just sitting there. And the cool thing is that using your muscles sucks up glucose without your body having to produce more insulin. And high levels of insulin is worse for your long-term health than just high levels of blood glucose. And that's a cool thing, which I'm also not going to name a life hack, but moving your muscles to be able to suck up glucose without insulin is a really good thing. A drug that can lower glucose spikes by 30% would be expensive, and the manufacturer would go around proselytizing all the benefits of reduced A1C and reduced risk of long-term complications. As it turns out, better than any drug, muscle contractions are awesome at using up extra glucose. I'll put a link in the show notes to an article from the company Levels about how they've seen walking after a meal change blood glucose numbers. Properly done exercise is always good for you, and if you've listened to me much at all, you know that I want to shout from the rooftops that multiple sessions of movement throughout the day is so important. Your body is built for perpetual motion. A walk is perfect for that, but your walk can be supercharged with specialness if it comes after a meal. Exercising boosts your glucose uptake by up to 50%. Not that your blood glucose will go down by 50%, but your uptake of glucose, which gets it out of the bloodstream, will go up. Our blood sugar spikes up after a meal. That's supposed to happen if we've eaten carbohydrates that need processing. Eating lower sugar and lower simple carb meals help us not get as much of a postprandial spike, which is also a good goal. But blunting spikes in blood sugar is good for our long-term health. Enter la passeggiata. When you walk after a meal, your heart rate and respiratory rate go up, sending more blood to your muscles, and when your muscles contract, they're able to take in more glucose. Other things happen too, like activation of AMPK and glucose transporter type 4 enzymes that suck up glucose. And that glucose can get used up without having to have as big of an insulin spike as if you were sedentary. That's really important because it decreases our chances of developing problems from high insulin and eventually insulin resistance. A 2022 study showed that even 2 minutes of walking after a meal makes a difference in blood sugar levels. Another study showed that exercising between 30 to 120 minutes after eating is the most effective for reducing the glucose peak after a meal. Another study of 615 participants concluded that 30 to 45 minutes after eating did the best job at curbing glucose levels. You want to be able to draw upon the fuel absorbed by your gut as soon as it enters your bloodstream. So anytime afterward is better than nothing, but between 30 minutes and 2 hours is good, and between 30 and 45 minutes after you eat is ideal. The type of meal matters too. One study from 2019 found that after a liquid drink with glucose, 30 minutes was too long to wait. You have to start walking pretty much as soon as you finish swallowing because liquid glucose is absorbed much faster than actual food. Okay, you're an overachiever. You really want to lower blood glucose after meals and achieve elite aging level status. So you decide to run wind sprints or do some other puke-inducing high-intensity cardio after your meal. Then you'll get amazing results, right? Nope. High-intensity exercise actually stimulates glucose production in the liver, temporarily raising your blood sugar. High-intensity exercise is still a good thing, but not for blunting a glucose spike after a meal. Plus, it would probably be pretty unpleasant. I love high intensity intervals, but they're kind of always unpleasant, and it would be torturous if you just finished a big dinner. Moderate to easy exercise is the best for blunting the peak of a glucose spike from eating. You can walk for as long as you have time for. Anything is better than nothing, so just get moving, even if you only walk around your house. But the ideal would be 30 minutes to an hour of walking after eating. Not surprisingly, a study comparing 9 hours of continuous sitting versus 30 minutes of continuous walking followed by 8.5 hours of continuous sitting versus 8.5 hours of total sitting broken up by 100 seconds of walking every 30 minutes. You got that? So 9 hours of sitting versus a 30-minute walk followed by 8.5 hours of sitting compared to 30 minutes of walking broken up into 100-second spurts and spread out over 8.5 hours showed that last group that moved for 100 seconds every 30 minutes had significantly lower plasma glucose and plasma insulin levels than the continuous sitters, whether they walked or not. Even the ones from group 2 who walked for the exact same number of minutes as the walkers from group 3 and sat for the exact same number of minutes, group 3 was better. Walking for 100 seconds every 30 minutes gives you better results. It's the same thing I recommend all the time. Set a timer to go off every 20 or 30 minutes to remind you to move even the slightest amount, and your metabolic health will benefit. And the benefits to you of good metabolic health are pretty much everything you want for your well-being. Energy, mental health, lower risk of all the chronic diseases of aging, less body fat, really everything good. Not part of passeggiata, but another way to reliably keep your blood sugar and insulin at healthier levels is to sleep well. There's no question about it. When you're well slept, your body is able to manage your insulin and blood glucose better than when you're underslept. I'm starting to see that on my continuous glucose monitor. I hurt my back, which I never do, and so I just couldn't sleep because it hurt so bad, and my blood sugar stayed a lot higher the next day. It was super frustrating. Eating the same meals at the same time and doing the same exercise one day when you haven't slept well will result in a very different glucose profile than on a day when you have slept well. Other things that affect your personal blood glucose response after a meal are the contents of your microbiome, your age, your genes, your stress level, and your body composition, like how much muscle you have. There's not a one-size-fits-all insulin and blood glucose response to certain meals, but walking after a meal does seem to be a very reliable way to decrease the height of your blood glucose spike, which is a good way to stay more metabolically healthy over time. Plus, walking after meals can be socially connecting if you bring others with you. It can lower your stress levels, boost your mood, help you come up with world-changing ideas, and show off your new suit. So, what do you think? Have I convinced you to go for a walk after your dinner today? It's such a good habit to get into, and it doesn't have to be long. I know it can be unappetizing if it's really hot outside or really cold outside or it's raining or snowing or blowing, but the more consistently you can move for a few minutes right after you eat, the bigger the favor you're doing your future self. It's not a marginal gain. It's a significant improvement. Compound and aggregate those significant daily improvements over time, and it can mean the difference between shrinking back and spending all of your time managing chronic disease versus being able to live and give more as you get older because your physiology is working well. La passeggiata. Give it a try and see if you can make it a habit. Thank you so much for being here today. Go take a walk after dinner today, and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.